It's Jared Allen, which would make the Portland
Oh.
Trailblazers a lot better. He's
Mm-hmm.
very cheap. Cleveland might be willing to part with him. Maybe you want to do some sort of 3-team trade and send out Nurkic and Dame, and then you send Tyler Hero and maybe somebody else over to Cleveland, and then you send Jared Allen to Portland.
That
And a
that
bunch of
might
picks,
be
obviously.
that might be the framing of the trade that actually works. And look, there's no way Portland can't do a trade just with Miami. They don't have enough. Doesn't make any sense. And if you're Trailblazers, you absolutely get what's best for your franchise, period. You start looping in a third team, maybe a fourth team, that's how you make it work. What would that Lakers dynasty look like? How many banners would be hanging? That's the biggest NBA what if that I've ever had. Do you have one like that?
Yeah, I've got one. What if Penny Hardaway never gets injured and it's Shaq and Penny instead of Kobe and Shaq?
That's another great one. That would be. Did you ever watch was it a 30 for 30 they did on the Shaq Penny Magic?
Yeah.
That was really good. That was really
so good.
Penny Hardaway's that one of those players that I think, I don't want to do the kids today thing, but I'm about to do a kids today thing. Kids today, Trista, don't understand how good young Penny Hardaway was. Then there was Lil Penny.
He was so nice.
Incredible.
I bought so many Penny Hardaway shoes.
Did you?
If he didn't get, oh yeah, they still have them out now. I almost bought a pair just for nostalgia alone, Ashu, just to put behind me, just in some random bookshelf, just in a random Zoom call that I do for BetQL, because that's how much I love Penny Hardaway. Not just an incredible talent, but the branding potential for him was huge. Him and Shaq together would have been incredible.
Dylan just said that he's 26 and has a Penny Magic jersey, so good for you, Dylan. You better know your damn history,
Nice.
all right? I don't need people forgetting how good Penny Hardaway was. Well, Tim Bontemps, who great writer for ESPN, covers the NBA for them, did a whole list of the NBA's biggest what-ifs of just the past 5 years. And this is relevant because there's a lot of things that could have changed the whole dynamic of the NBA. Titles that could have been won, playoffs made or missed. And this is just the West right now. There's also an East. But if you just look at the West alone, the first one that's right there at the very top that is actually a really good one, just what if the Dallas Mavericks had extended Jalen Brunson? Now, that may not be the biggest, flashiest what if, but if they had kept Jalen Brunson, well, we know for one, you're not going to have Kyrie Irving on that roster, and we have no idea really what they're going to look like right now, right? I mean, we don't know. I don't think it's going to work. It didn't look good last time out at the end of the season. I never thought that their games would mesh together, but we did see that Jalen Brunson and Luka Doncic were able to make that thing work, even for a short period of time when Jalen Brunson kind of went to that next level. Now, Jalen Brunson also would have never been the player that he is today with the Knicks because he wouldn't have really had that opportunity. But the Mavs would have been a playoff team last year. So anybody that bet the Mavs to just make the playoffs last year ended up losing that bet because the whole team fell apart, and then Kyrie Irving at the end with Luka never clicked whatsoever.
Well, and think about this. If Jalen Brunson stays with the Mavericks because they extend him when they had the chance to and he wanted to stay, then you don't ever get Kyrie Irving to the Mavs. And then where does Kyrie Irving even go? Does Kyrie Irving get traded to the Lakers? Do they blow that team up and get rid of Russ but don't get any of those key pieces that help them get to the Western Conference Finals? Does Kyrie Irving even get traded? Because are there any other teams that can legitimately have the pieces and the place that he wants to go? Does he end up just in free agency this year? And does anyone even want him when there's no sample size for him other than playing for the Nets? Just a lot of dominoes fell because of Jalen Brunson.
Now, it's easy to look at a team on paper, right, and say, like, they're more talented with a certain group of players. But that doesn't mean that they're a better team, right? We've seen that time and time again. Are you in the same boat as me? The Mavs are a better team if Jalen Brunson is there now over Kyrie Irving.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yep.
Jalen Brunson added stability and leadership in the locker room. Guys, and here's... There's a lot of people who say negative things about Kyrie Irving as a teammate. And I'm not one of those people. A lot of people love playing with Kyrie. But it just never really translates to like what we see in the
Mm-hmm.
media in terms of vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Jalen Brunson has been known to be one of the best, like, locker room leaders, and someone who could kind of, those people that are just, every time you're around them, you're happier, even when you're in a bad mood. And Luca's like a very roller coaster moody kind of guy. But Jalen Brunson allegedly was kind of the guy that kept Luka Doncic happy, just
Mm-hmm.
him being around. So a happy, productive, in shape Luca with Jalen Brunson changes a lot with that team. And I think, yeah, you're right. With Dorian Finney-Smith and Jalen Brunson, I think they're a much better team with that squad than they are without Dorian Finney-Smith and adding Kyrie Irving in there too.
Best running backs in the NFL, and what type of season could they have this year? I think most people kind of look at Nick Chubb as the guy that could lead the league in rushing, is that running back that's up there as maybe the best, if not the best, as a traditional running back. Christian McCaffrey, we know his versatility. I'd maybe put him behind there, not a true running back. Derrick Henry was the guy for a while, ran for 1,500 yards last year, but they tried to trade him in the offseason. Then after that, I mean, like, we're talking names like Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley. We don't know what kind of seasons these guys are going to have because Josh Jacobs is holding out. Jonathan Taylor, I don't know what's going on with that team. And Saquon Barkley's mad, but does he go back to last year's Saquon Barkley, or does he go to the injury-plagued Saquon Barkley underperforming that we saw through a lot of his career with the Giants?
Now, you forgot Austin Eckler. Do not disrespect him.
This is true. This is true.
Very,
I wasn't going down like the
very
whole list. It
high-end
was
running
more of
back.
the, it was a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of the question marks that were there. But you're right. Austin, look, if
Yes,
we really want to do
yes.
like a full list, we can certainly do that. But to me, like, those names that you see near the top that would be in the top 10,
Yep.
there's multiples where you just go, Derrick Henry, is he going to regress
Yep.
a ton this year? Like, there's a lot of question marks around some of the best players at the position, while quarterback and wide receiver is the polar opposite of this.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes into it and is a perfect dovetail into why owners and GMs are not paying running backs. Because, number one, I believe that the last three leaders in rushing in the NFL have 1 year or no years left on their contracts. So, I mean, you're talking about teams just very reluctant to extend them no matter what the situation is, right? Because of age, because of wear and tear, because of just the declining value of the position if you have a really good offensive line, right? And so you only really have like maybe 3 to 5 legit tier 1 running backs, but even some of those have question marks too, right? You could make, like you said, you could kind of only make the case for one running back that you could say 100% is going to have a boom dynamite season from like a dynamic running back, and that's Bijan Robinson. And he's a rookie. That's Bijan Robinson's the only player that I can say for sure is going to just kill it. I like Nick Chubb a lot, but he just does one thing, right? We talk about Tony Pollard, and Tony Pollard, he's only getting 15 carries a game, right? Saquon, injury history. Jonathan Taylor, like you said, issues with the team and whether they're going to pay him. Josh Jacobs holding out. Derrick Henry getting older. Like, the running back position is dying for a reason, and part of that is the players that are falling off of a cliff for a variety of reasons.
Bijan Robinson, 1,100 and a half rushing yards. Even money over, minus 120 to the under. It's a pretty big number, but for somebody that has the dynamic talent that he has and the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, so there's a threat of that always being the case too, which can open up the run game for him. I mean, I like the over. You get it at even money, which is nice, but it's also just the fact that this guy is an incredible talent at running back, and we've seen running backs like Ezekiel Elliott in the past step right in and lead the league in rushing. The only reason that I would maybe worry a little bit that he could go under 1,100, and again, that's what the market's telling you it's going right now with the minus 120 to the under. I mean, you got a lot of talent in that backfield. A lot of talent in that Falcons backfield. Does that cannibalize any of his carries? That's the only question that I would have that would make me hesitate even slightly in taking the over on that number.
I am so in on Bijan Robinson. It's insane. I am not just from like a talent perspective, but what we know is that Arthur Smith loves to run the ball. And I think that the platoon of running backs that he has aren't really going to take away from Bijan. I think he's salivating over having another workhorse back like he had in Devontae Freeman when Devontae Freeman was really young and really healthy, right? I don't think there's a better fit for an offense than Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. I think he's going to make an immediate impact. And not only do I love the 1099 and a half to get 1,100 yards, I actually like Bijan to lead the league in rushing at plus 1,400 as well. I think in terms of like, for me, who's going to beat him out, I guess it's Nick Chubb, and that's it.
Nick Chubb is somebody that's very, very popular in being sort of that next running back up to really jump at the very top there. I find it hard to look at anybody other than Bijan Robinson and Nick Chubb right now as running backs that could actually lead the league in rushing, right? Like, there's a difference. If you want to talk about, like, best running backs in the NFL and talk what they do, you put Nick Chubb aside. We've said that. Derrick Henry, we know what he's done, but the question is, can he still come close to that? It's hilarious to think he's going to be it's hilarious to say he had a down year last year when he ran for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns. But then you start going into more of like the versatile guys, right? You talk about Austin Eckler. He'll never do that because he's also a wide receiver. I mean, really, he's both. Christian McCaffrey, same player, if not even better at that sort of role where he's lining up in the slot, where he's catching balls out of the backfield, whatever the case is. Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing last year, but like, what is his whole situation even going to be with the Raiders? Jonathan Taylor, another example of that. Maybe you'd look at Jonathan Taylor as that guy if you think that, like we talked to Frank Schwab earlier, and he thinks it's all going to work out and he'll be back there in Indy. There's no real other place for him to go. So maybe the only other running back that I would look at besides Bijan Robinson and Nick Chubb to lead the NFL in rushing would probably be Jonathan Taylor, because we saw him do it 2 years ago when he was in the MVP conversation on top of all that.
Yeah, the one thing that sort of scares me is offensive line stuff for the Colts. And the Colts offensive line in 2022 allowed the fourth most pressures. They are supposedly going to be ranked right around 18th for 2023 in their offensive line. So if there's no, and Ryan is so good at talking about all the details of offensive line and how that impacts a guy like Jonathan Taylor specifically, because he had a bunch of stats that I don't have off the top of my head in terms of why Jonathan Taylor struggled last year as compared to the year before when he led the league in rushing. And that was it, right? If they get push, then Jonathan Taylor, when fully healthy and fully motivated, is going to ball out. But if they're a middle-of-the-road offensive line, it could get ugly fast. Jonathan Taylor could be like, my ankle, my calf. Like, I'm going to sit out some games.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at right now, Pro Football Focus actually has them ranked 10th, but that means, very little when we're just heading into a season. Ryan Kelly at center, Quentin Nelson are two names that certainly matter, and sort of opening up the middle for somebody like Jonathan Taylor. But you're right. Like, again, it's sort of like a wide receiver where you talk about a quarterback not being able to get him the ball. If the offensive line can't open up holes for a running back, it makes their job that much harder with it. But, Jonathan Taylor is, potentially, he can be the best running back in the NFL. And I would like his rushing yards right now, God forbid they could actually have it up. See, nothing's up right now. That's the worst part. I'd love to see what that would be set at now, but given all the question marks, like, you don't even know what it's, like, where that would even be set. If I had to guess if he's going to play a full season, you'd have to think it'd be maybe, if Bijan Robinson's at 1,100, do you go under Bijan Robinson with Jonathan Taylor? You might, given the down year he had last year. Nick Chubb's at 1,225. Ramondre Stevenson's right at 1,000. Tony Pollard's at 1,050. So do you put Jonathan Taylor in that 1,050 range maybe where Tony Pollard is?